The orbital Scholarium of Xenthis Prime hummed with the quiet energy of 1,000 scholars at work. Its vast domed chambers floated serenely above the planet's atmosphere, bathed in the pale blue light of the system's twin suns. Holographic displays flickered between towering shelves of ancient data crystals, each containing fragments of galactic history carefully preserved for study. Dr. Elias Carter moved through the central archive with the practiced ease of someone who'd spent too many years among aliens. His human frame, unremarkable by Earth standards, stood out among the bioluminescent scholars gliding between terminals. A Xaperian archivist brushed past him, her forearms cradling a stack of crystalline tablets that shimmered with internal light. She didn't apologize. They never did. "Ah, the soft skin returns," came a familiar mocking voice. Archivist Vex Laura stood before an illuminated display labeled Human Mythology, Pre-Eftal Era. Her chitinous fingers danced across the controls, pulling up an image of ancient Greek warriors. "I was just reviewing your people's colorful imagination." Elias forced a smile. 3 years as the only human historian in the Scholarium had taught him patience. Those aren't myths, Vex Laura, they're historical records. The Xaperian's antennae twitched in amusement. "Come now, Dr. Carter, even your own records contradict themselves." She enlarged a section of text. "This so-called Battle of Thermopylae claims 300 warriors held a mountain pass against millions. Do you take us for fools?" Around them, several other scholars paused their work to listen. A hulking Vorak researcher snorted, his amphibious skin flushing with derision. Typical human exaggeration. My ancestors could have crushed such a force with a single warship. Elias felt his jaw tighten. Your ancestors weren't there. Precisely. Vex Laura clacked her mandibles in triumph. Because humans hadn't even achieved spaceflight during the Vorak purges, your species was still burning fossil fuels when the Federation formed. She gestured to the display. These are clearly primitive attempts at self-aggrandizement. The gathered aliens murmured agreement. A delicate Cerealian scholar floated closer on anti-grav implants, her eye stalks blinking in patronizing sympathy. "There is no shame in it, Dr. Carter. Every young species invents heroic pasts before what?" Elias interrupted. "Before joining the enlightened galactic community." He reached into his satchel and withdrew a small data chip. "I've been compiling evidence, cross-referencing Federation records with Earth's military archives." Vex Laura's amusement faded. "That is a waste of Scholarium resources. The Human Mythology Project was approved as an anthropological curiosity, not the truth." Elias inserted the chip into the nearest terminal. The display flickered, then resolved into a star map. "This is the Tarkis system. According to Federation records, it has always been uninhabited." The Vorak scholar shifted uncomfortably. "What of it?" Elias zoomed in. "Earth's colonial logs say different." The map resolved into a planetary scan, ruined cities visible beneath the dust storms. Tarkis Prime had a human colony in Fey population, 80,000. Silence fell over the archive. Even the ever-present hum of the environmental systems seemed to quiet. "That is impossible," Vex Laura hissed. "Humanity didn't achieve FTL until Fey," Elias finished. "Officially." He tapped another command. The display changed to show a blackened battlefield, the wreckage of strange, organic-looking ships scattered across a cratered plain. This footage was recovered from a military satellite that survived the battle. The aliens leaned closer. The image showed human soldiers in powered armor advancing through smoke, their weapons firing pulses of blue energy that tore through alien ranks. The perspective shook as an explosion rocked the camera. When it stabilized, a single armored figure stood silhouetted against the flames, his helmet cracked open to reveal a bloodied human face. "Captain Riker's last transmission," Elias said quietly. The audio crackled to life. This is Captain Riker, Tarkis Defense Force. They didn't expect the nukes. Repeat, they didn't. The transmission cut off with a burst of static. The Vorak scholar had turned a sickly grey. This is doctored. The Vorak never fought humans before the contact wars. Our histories are wrong. Elias ejected the chip, or edited. I found 17 similar discrepancies just in this sector alone. A new voice cut through the tension. That will be quite enough, Dr. Carter. Chancellor Orvak emerged from the shadows, his amphibious skin glistening under the archive lights. The Vorak bureaucrat's webbed fingers twitched toward the terminal. This is highly inappropriate use of Scholarium resources. Elias didn't back down. With all due respect, Chancellor, this is exactly what the Scholarium is for, preserving truth. Orvak's throat pouch inflated, a Vorak sign of agitation. You're spreading dangerous speculation. The Federation's historical records are impeccable. He gestured to the now dark screen. These so-called discoveries of yours are clearly the result of corrupted data or wishful thinking. Around them, the other scholars began to murmur. Elias saw the doubt in their eyes, not in their own records, but in him. Vexillora recovered first, her mandibles clicking in smug satisfaction. Really, Dr. Carter? Did you expect us to believe humans secretly fought interstellar wars before developing proper starships? Next, you'll claim your ancestors built pyramids as landing beacons for alien visitors. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Elias felt his face grow hot, but he kept his voice steady. I'm claiming nothing but the right to proper research. The Human Mythology Project was approved by the Scholarium Board. I intend to complete it. Orvak's bulbous eyes narrowed. Your project studies primitive belief systems, Dr. Carter, not whatever fantasy you're peddling now. He reached out and plucked the data chip from the terminal. I'll be reviewing this material personally. In the meantime, I suggest you return to cataloging your people's fairy tales. The Chancellor turned and strode away, his retinue of Vorak aides falling in behind him. Vexillora gave Elias one last pitying look before returning to her work. The other scholars slowly dispersed, leaving Elias standing alone before the darkened display. A soft chime signaled the end of the research cycle. Around him, scholars began powering down their stations and floating toward the exit tubes. None met his eyes. Elias waited until the archive had nearly emptied before moving. He approached a forgotten terminal in a shadowed alcove, one he'd modified weeks ago for this exact purpose. His fingers flew across the interface. Calling up a secure channel, the screen resolved into the face of a human woman in a military uniform. Elias, you're late. Ran into complications, Captain, he murmured, keeping one eye on the entrance. Orvak took the Tarkis footage. Captain Ava Sinclair's expression darkened. That is unfortunate. The Defiance is still 3 days out. Elias nodded. Then we'll need to accelerate the timeline. They're already suspicious. He inserted another chip, this one unmarked, into the terminal. I'm transmitting everything I've found if Orvak is willing to suppress this much. Sinclair's smile was all teeth. Then the Federation's hiding more than we thought. Hold position, Doctor, help is coming. The transmission cut out. Elias removed the chip and crushed it in his palm, scattering the fragments into a recycling vent. As he turned to leave, his gaze fell on the main display, where the words Human Mythology still glowed mockingly above an image of Spartan warriors. Funny, he muttered to the empty archive. They always forget the monsters in our myths were real too. The air in the deep storage vault smelled of ozone and neglect. Flickering luminescent panels cast jagged shadows across rows of forgotten data terminals, their surfaces coated in a fine layer of dust that hadn't been disturbed in decades. Elias Carter's boots echoed against the metal grating as he moved through the abandoned section of the Scholarium's archives, his breath fogging slightly in the chilled air. Technician Cree skittered behind him, her 6 insectoid limbs clicking nervously against the floor. "This area is restricted, Dr. Carter," she whispered, her antennae twitching toward the ceiling, mounted security drones. "If Chancellor Orvak finds out, he won't." Elias didn't slow down. His fingers traced the labels on the storage lockers until he found the one he wanted. Sector Phi Gamma classification, mythological artifacts, pre-FTL. The locker hissed open, revealing a single, unassuming data chip nestled in a cracked preservation case. The label read Project Sparta in faded Terran script. Kree's faceted eyes widened. That is written in your language." Elias didn't answer. He wiped the dust from the chip with his sleeve and moved to the nearest terminal. The screen flickered to life with a protesting whine as he inserted the chip. The display stuttered, then resolved into a grainy, glitching hologram. A battlefield. Not the clean, orderly war zones of Federation records, but a nightmare of craters and smoke. Alien corpses, Vorak, by the look of their segmented armor, littered the ground in heaps. The camera jerked violently, focusing for a split second on a human soldier in scorched tactical gear, his face streaked with blood and soot. Then the audio crackled to life. "This is Captain Riker, AND Terran Armored Division. Vorak forces have broken through the eastern ridge. We're falling back to the secondary." A deafening explosion cut him off. The camera spun, showing a horizon lit by mushroom clouds. God damn it, they didn't expect the nukes. Repeat. They didn't expect the nukes. They thought we were still using chemical propellants. Kree made a sound like a choked whistle. This is a real battle record?" Her forelimbs trembled as she pointed at the date stamp in the corner. "But this predates human FTL by nearly a century. Your species wasn't even supposed to have spaceflight then, let alone nuclear weapons." Elias's voice was flat. "Interplanetary colonies, standing armies capable of repelling a Vorak purge fleet." He tapped the console, advancing the footage. The next clip showed a squad of humans in powered armor cutting through a Vorak defensive line with plasma rifles. Funny how the Federation's history books never mentioned that, isn't it? Kree's antennae flattened against her skull. "This can't be real. The Vorak purges they were genocides. Entire species were wiped out. If humans fought them and won, then the Federation's entire narrative about pre-FTL civilizations being helpless is a lie." Elias ejected the chip and pocketed it, and someone went to a lot of trouble to make sure no one ever found out. A new voice cut through the vault's silence. "Indeed they did." Elias spun. Chancellor Orvak stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 armored Vorak guards. The amphibious bureaucrat's slitted eyes gleamed in the dim light. "I warned the Council that allowing a human into the archives was a mistake." Kree shrank back, her carapace rattling. "Chancellor, I didn't know." Orvak ignored her. His webbed fingers flexed around a small, sleek device. Fortunately, the Scholarium's security systems are quite thorough. Every terminal records unauthorized access. He smiled, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. "Did you really think you could just walk in here and uncover secrets buried for generations, Dr. Carter?" Elias met his gaze without flinching. "No, I knew I could." The Chancellor's smile vanished. He gestured to the guards. "Take him and destroy that chip." The Vorak soldiers advanced, just as the entire vault shuddered. A deafening alarm blared through the speakers, and the lights flickered red. Kree's antennae shot upright. "Breach alert. Something's hitting the Scholarium's outer shields." Orvak whirled toward the nearest monitor. The screen showed the orbital facility's external cameras, and the sleek, angular warship now locking its weapons on the archive's docking ring. The vessel's identification code flashed in bold Terran script, USN Defiance. Elias didn't smile, but his voice carried a quiet, deadly satisfaction. I didn't come here alone, Chancellor. Outside, the Defiance's railguns charged with a hum that vibrated through the station's bones. The air in the Scholarium's private chambers was thick with the scent of damp algae, a byproduct of Chancellor Orvak's amphibious biology. The Vorak bureaucrat's webbed fingers danced across the holographic console, deleting files with practiced efficiency. Each flick of his wrist erased another piece of history, another truth too dangerous for the Federation to acknowledge. Elias Carter crouched behind a ventilation grate, his breath shallow. The human historian had spent the last hour crawling through the Scholarium's maintenance shafts, following the trail of encrypted data packets Orvak had been sending. Now, pressed against the cold metal, he watched as the Chancellor hissed into a comms device. "The human is digging too deep," Orvak muttered, his voice a wet rasp. "Erase everything. If they learn the truth about the Vorak purges, the Federation's entire history collapses." Elias' fingers tightened around his own datapad, the stolen feed from Orvak's console flickering in his palm. The footage was grainy, distorted by time and deliberate corruption, but the carnage was unmistakable. Human soldiers in battered armor standing atop mountains of alien corpses. The date stamp glowed ominously. Fae Colony X Fae. A chime sounded from Orvak's console. The Chancellor's bulbous eyes widened as a new transmission blinked to life. A Vorak insignia, followed by the grim face of Admiral Drassic. "Chancellor," Drassic snapped, his scaled lips peeling back from jagged teeth. "The human fleet has been spotted near the Deneb sector. They're mobilizing." Orvak's throat sac inflated in alarm. "Impossible. The Defiance was decommissioned centuries ago. Tell that to the ships decloaking at our borders," Drassic snarled. "I've been hiding, Orvak waiting, and now that damned historian is about to blow the lid off everything." Elias' pulse hammered in his ears. Head suspected the Federation had buried the truth. But this was confirmation. Humanity hadn't just survived the Vorak purges. They'd won, and they'd let the galaxy believe otherwise. A shadow moved at the edge of the chamber. Elias barely had time to duck as a Zephyrian guard rounded the corner, his antennae twitching. The guard's compound eyes locked onto the ventilation grate. "Intruder," the guard screeched, raising a pulse rifle. Elias didn't hesitate. He slammed his shoulder into the grate, tumbling into the chamber just as the guard fired. The pulse round seared past his ear, scorching the wall behind him. Orvak whirled, his amphibious face contorted in rage. "You," the Chancellor spat, "you meddling little." Elias rolled to his feet, clutching the datapad like a lifeline. "You've been lying to them," he said, backing toward the door. "The purges weren't a genocide. They were a war, and humanity won." Orvak's webbed hands clenched. "You think the Federation will believe you? You're one man with a stolen file. The Council will bury you." The guard lunged, but Elias sidestepped, driving his elbow into the Zephyrian's thorax. The alien gasped, his exoskeleton cracking under the impact. Elias didn't wait to see him fall. He bolted for the door, Orvak's enraged shrieks echoing behind him. The Scholarium's halls blurred as Elias ran. His mind raced faster than his feet. The Defiance wasn't a relic. It was active. Human ships were moving, and if Orvak was panicking, it meant the Federation's lies were about to collapse. He skidded around a corner, nearly colliding with Technician Kree. The insectoid alien's antennae quivered as he took in Elias' wild expression. "You found it," Kree whispered. "The truth." Elias shoved the datapad into Kree's trembling hands. "Broadcast this, every terminal, every feed. The entire Scholarium needs to see it now." Kree's mandibles clicked in fear. "They'll execute us." "They'll try," Elias said, glancing back the way Head come. The sound of booted feet echoed down the corridor. Guards. Lots of them. But humanity's done hiding. And when the fleet gets here, the Federation's going to learn what real history looks like. Cree hesitated only a second before nodding. He scurried off. The datapad clutched tight. Elias turned to face the approaching guards, his back against the wall. He had no weapons, no backup, just the truth. And for the first time in centuries, that was enough. The lead guard, a hulking Vorak enforcer, leveled his rifle. "Human, you're coming with us." Elias smiled. "No," he said softly. "I think you're coming with me." Outside the Scholarium's observation windows, the stars flickered. Then, one by one, they winked out, replaced by the angular silhouettes of warships. The USN Defiance led the armada, its railguns humming with pent-up fury. Orvak's voice crackled over the Scholarium's PA system, shrill with panic. "All personnel, emergency lockdown. The humans are." The transmission cut off as the Defiance's main cannon powered up. Elias kept smiling. "They never learn," he murmured. "We let them underestimate us." The Scholarium's central forum was designed for quiet debate, not revolution. Its curved walls of polished xenthium alloy usually reflected the calm blue glow of holographic lectures. Today, they flickered with something far more dangerous: truth. Elias Carter stood at the center of the platform, his fingers hovering over the stolen data chip. Around him, the tiered seating brimmed with alien scholars, their bioluminescent markings flashing in confusion. Vexlora's four eyes narrowed from the front row, her mandibles twitching in irritation. "You waste our time, Softkin," she hissed, her voice dripping with condescension. "The forum is for verified historical study, not human delusions." Elias didn't flinch. He tapped the chip. The air above him shimmered, resolving into a grainy battlefield. Cratered earth, smoldering wrecks of Vorak war machines, and standing amidst the carnage, a single human soldier, his armor cracked, his face streaked with blood and soot. The caption burned beneath the image: "Colony, HFY human victory." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Tentacles coiled. Antennae stiffened. "This," Elias said quietly, "is not mythology." Vexlora's exoskeleton flushed an angry violet. "Preposterous. The Vorak purges occurred during your species' industrial age. You barely had projectile weapons, let alone what?" Elias interrupted. He swiped the hologram forward. The scene changed. A fleet engagement, human ships with primitive thrusters weaving through Vorak destroyers. A cruiser exploded, its hull splitting like rotten fruit. Let alone warships, let alone victories. A Zepyrian scholar in the back row stood abruptly, his frills flaring. "This footage is doctored. The Federation archives confirm humans were non-combatants during the purges." Elias smirked. He tapped another command. The hologram split. On one side, the battle footage. On the other, an official Federation document, its seal unmistakable. Subject human engagement at Colony HFY classification. Eyes only outcome. Vorak Faith Legion annihilated. Recommend historical revision to prevent panic. The room went dead silent. Vexlora's claws scraped against the floor as she stepped forward. "You expect us to believe the Federation falsified records, that they hid human military actions for centuries?" Elias didn't blink. "I don't expect you to believe anything. I'm just showing you the evidence." He swiped again. More documents, more battles, more lies. A young Cerelian student, her floating orbs wide with shock, whispered, "But why would they do this?" "Because we let them," Elias said. Vexlora let out a sharp, derisive click. "Oh, of course. The mighty humans allowed the galaxy to underestimate them. How convenient." Elias turned to her. His voice dropped, cold and measured. "Tell me, Archivist, what's the first rule of warfare?" She bristled. "Do not lecture me on know your enemy," Elias cut in. "And better yet, let them think they know you." He gestured to the hologram. "The Federation wrote us off as primitives, as softkins, So we played the part. We let you archive our myths. We let you laugh at our exaggerations. His lips curled, and while you were busy mocking Thermopylae, we were studying you. The hologram shifted again. This time, it showed a Vorak transmission, scrambled, panicked. They're not retreating, they're herding us. Their weapons. Gods. Their weapons are. The transmission cut to static. Vexlora's mandibles quivered. For the first time, something like doubt flickered in her eyes. Elias leaned in. Still think Fey humans couldn't hold a pass. The forum erupted, scholars shouted. Data tablets clattered to the floor. A hulking Gronian historian stood, his armored plates rattling. This changes everything. If humans fought, and won, against the Vorak before FTL, then the entire Federation power structure, silence. The command came from the entrance. Chancellor Orvax slithered into the chamber, his amphibious skin glistening with alarm. Mucus. Behind him, a squad of Vorak enforcers leveled pulse. Rifles, Dr. Carter. Orvax spat. You are in violation of Scholarium protocols. This data is classified. Elias didn't move. Funny, it wasn't classified when it happened. Just when you lost, Orvax's throat. Sack inflated. A Vorak sign of rage. Seize him, erase that footage. The enforcers surged forward, then froze. A new hologram flickered to life above Elias. Not battle records, not documents, a live feed. The USN Atlantica, its railguns humming, filled the projection. Behind it, dozens more human ships decloaked. Captain Sinclair's voice crackled through the forum speakers. Chancellor, stand down, or well demonstrate exactly how mythical our weapons are. Vexlora staggered back. Her voice was barely a whisper. You planned this. Elias finally smiled. History, he said, is written by the victors. Today, we're doing some editing. The orbital defense grid of Xenthis Prime shimmered with passive scans, its automated sentinels drifting lazily through their patrol vectors. Chancellor Orvax's private channel crackled with the panicked voice of Admiral Drassic. You said the human records were purged. My sensors are... A static, laced explosion cut him off. On the Scholarium's observation deck, Elias Carter gripped the railing as the stars twisted. Space itself seemed to fracture, then ruptured as the first human warship tore into real space. The USN Atlantica's kilometer, long hull blotted out the sun, its armored flanks studded with railgun batteries still glowing from recent combat. Vexlora's bioluminescent stripes flashed crimson. Impossible, our scans showed no. Then the rest came, one by one. Human vessels emerged from stealth, cruisers with scarred hulls, carriers launching fighters, dreadnoughts older than the Federation itself. Their transponder codes flickered, USN Vengeance, USN Titan, USN Jerusalem, names absent from official records, names that shouldn't exist. Elias exhaled. You wanted proof. Here is your damn proof. Aboard the Atlantica, Captain Ava Sinclair watched the Vorak defense fleet scramble. Their sleek, modern ships pivoted wildly, outnumbered 3-1 by vessels that, according to Federation databases, had been decommissioned centuries ago. Her comm officer grinned. Admiral Drassic is hailing sounds. Upset. Sinclair activated the fleet-wide channel. The Vorak admiral's scaled face appeared. His frills flared in panic. This is an act of war. The Federation will... The Federation, Sinclair interrupted, has been at war with humanity for Fey years. You just didn't notice. She nodded to her tactical officer. Show them. Every human ship's holographic projectors activated simultaneously above Xenthis Prime. A star map unfolded. Thousands of battles, skirmishes, and sieges the Federation had erased. Colony X-Fey, the Sirius blockade, the cleansing of Altair. Drassic's claws dug into his command throne. These are fabrications. Our archives show peaceful. Your archives show what we let you see. Sinclair leaned forward. Every myth your scholars mocked, every exaggerated human war story, those were censored battle reports. Outside, the Atlantica's railguns charged with a subsonic hum across the human fleet. Targeting lasers painted the Vorak flagship. You banned us from your history, Sinclair said softly. So we wrote our own surrender now, or well add today's date to the list. Aboard the Scholarium, Vexlora collapsed against a console. The holographic battle records still played, human soldiers holding trenches against plasma bombardments, starfighters outmaneuvering AI-piloted drones. A lone Marine, his armor cracked open, laughing as he triggered a nuke. You see it now, don't you? Elias murmured. The Zeperian scholar's mandibles trembled. All this time, your species pretended to be primitive. Elias shook his head. We didn't pretend. We just stopped correcting you. He pointed to the viewport. That fleet, it's been out there for centuries waiting. Because humanity's oldest tactic isn't brute force. It's letting our enemies underestimate us until it's too late. On the Atlantica's bridge, Sinclair watched Drassic's flagship power down its weapons. One by one, the Vorak vessels followed suit. Her XO whistled. Think they'll update their history books now. Sinclair smirked. Oh, they'll update something. She opened a channel to Elias. Doctor, the floor's yours. Elias activated the Scholarium's planetary broadcast system. The holograms shifted, showing not just battles, but dates, locations, names. Attention, Xenthis Prime, he said, his voice echoing across every screen in the system. You've studied human mythology, now study this. The files unfolded like a nightmare, secret wars. Buried treaties. The real reason humanity had been segregated from Federation military exercises, not because they were weak, but because they'd won too many times. In orbit, the Atlantica's railguns remained locked on target. The lesson for today, Elias said quietly. When humans call something a myth, check the fine print. Silence gripped the Scholarium. Then, from a trembling first-year student, Are we the villains? Elias didn't answer. He didn't need to. The Federation Council chambers had never known silence like this. The circular amphitheater, usually buzzing with the chatter of 100 species, sat frozen as Elias Carter stepped onto the central dais. His boots echoed against the polished floor, the sound swallowed by the weight of what he carried. High-speaker Jalara's scales had lost their usual luster, her reptilian fingers gripping the armrests of her floating throne. This session was not scheduled, she hissed, her forked tongue flicking nervously. Elias ignored her. He tapped his wrist terminal, and the chamber's holographic projectors flared to life. Scheduled or not, you'll want to see this. The first image materialized, a battlefield. Not some artist's rendering of human myth, but raw, unfiltered footage, cratered earth, smoldering Vorak war machines, and standing amidst the wreckage, a single human soldier, his armor cracked, his rifle still smoking. This, Elias said, his voice steady, is Colony HFY, the Vorak purges. A murmur rippled through the council. Ambassador Krell of the Zeperian Consortium rose, his bioluminescent markings pulsing with agitation. Impossible. Humans hadn't even achieved orbital flight by then. Elias swiped the air. The hologram shifted. Another battle, then another. Human ships, primitive by today's standards, trading fire with Vorak dreadnoughts. Human soldiers, outnumbered and outgunned, holding the line. Human cities burning. And then, in the next frame, Vorak fleets retreating. You've been fed a lie, Elias said, a carefully curated one. Jalara's slit pupils dilated. These records are classified. Not anymore. Elias tapped another command. The USN Defiance's logs flickered into view, the ship's AI voice crackling through the chamber. Admiral's log. Vorak forces have withdrawn from Sirius sector. Casualties heavy, but they won't return. They've learned what happens when you push humans too far. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted over one another, some demanding proof, others calling for security. Elias waited. Had seen this coming. Then the doors burst open. Captain Ava Sinclair strode in, her naval uniform crisp, her sidearm holstered but visible. Behind her, a squad of Marines in full combat armor took positions along the walls. The room fell silent again. "Apologies for the interruption," Sinclair said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "But I believe the Council has some questions." Jalara's throat pouch inflated, a sign of distress among her species. "This is an outrage. You have no authority here." Sinclair smiled. "Actually, we do. Article FA of the Federation Charter. Any species with verified historical claims of territorial defense is entitled to full disclosure." She nodded to Elias. "And it seems you've just verified ours." Elias zoomed in on the final image, a star map. Human colonies, marked in red, Vorak incursions, in blue. And then the counterattacks, the victories. The silent, relentless pushback of a species that had never truly been defeated. "You scrubbed us from your records," Elias said, "called our wars myths, our heroes legends." He leaned forward. "But we remember." A low chime echoed through the chamber, an incoming transmission. The main screen flickered, and the face of Admiral Drassic of the Vorak High Fleet appeared, his amphibious features twisted in panic. "Council, human warships have entered the Xenthis system." There, Sinclair cut him off with a raised hand. "They're exactly where they're supposed to be." She turned back to the Council. "You wanted proof. Here it is. The USN Atlantica, the Defiance, the Titan's Wrath, every ship you thought was decommissioned or lost." She bared her teeth. "We've been waiting." Jalara's voice was barely a whisper. "Why?" Elias answered for her. "Because myths are powerful. Let the galaxy think we were weak. Let them laugh at our exaggerated history." He gestured to the holograms. "And when the time came, we'd remind them the stories were never exaggerations." The room trembled as the distant thrum of engines rattled the station. Somewhere above them, 100 human warships locked their targeting systems. Sinclair folded her arms. "So who's ready to rewrite history?" Jalara slumped in her throne, her scales dull. You hid your strength." Elias smiled. "Mythology's funny like that, turns out. The monsters were you." The Scholarium's grand hall hummed with uneasy silence. The once pristine holographic displays now flickered with raw, unfiltered history, battle logs, casualty reports, and victory declarations the Federation had spent centuries erasing. Vexlora's mandibles twitched as she adjusted the projection, her bioluminescent stripes dimmed in something akin to shame. Elias Carter stood at the center of the room, his arms crossed, watching as alien scholars pored over the newly declassified records. The air smelled of ozone and disbelief. A young Zeperian student, barely out of larval stage, tapped a claw against a datapad, its screen showing the infamous Battle of Colony XFA. This can't be real," the student whispered, its voice trembling. "Humans didn't even have plasma weaponry during the purges. How did they?" "Improvised nukes," Elias said flatly. "Dug into the mountains, detonated remotely. Your invasion force walked right over them." A Vorak historian, his scales dull with shock, scrolled through casualty lists. 3 million dead in a single engagement, and you buried this. "We didn't bury it," Elias corrected. "Your leaders did. After the 7th time we glassed one of your fleets, they decided it was better to pretend we didn't exist." Vexlora finally spoke, her voice stripped of its usual arrogance. "But why let us believe you were weak? Why not claim your victories?" Elias smirked. Because myths are scarier than facts. You dismissed Thermopylae as a fairy tale. Imagine your surprise when you found out we've been recreating it for fun. A ripple of uneasy murmurs spread through the hall. The hologram shifted, displaying the USN Defiance's logs, decades of hidden patrols, intercepted transmissions, and the slow, meticulous cataloging of every species that had ever underestimated humanity. You banned us from your history books, Elias continued, tapping a key. The projection zoomed in on a single line of text, highlighted in blood, read, Directive Omega, let them believe they won. A Sorelian scholar, its floating orbs pulsing with distress, drifted closer. This directive, it's dated before first contact. You planned this? Planned? No, Elias chuckled. We just know how the story always ends. You show up, you assume we're primitive. We let you. And then, he gestured to the hologram, where footage of the Atlantica's railguns tearing through a Vorak dreadnought played on loop. Vexloris' antennae drooped. All this time, we mocked your myths, and they were warnings. Pretty much, Elias said. But hey, look on the bright side. He tossed a data chip onto the nearest console. Now you get to teach the real history. The chip activated, flooding the room with a cascade of files. Every battle, every ambush, every time humanity had been outnumbered and won. The students stared, their various limbs trembling. One of them, a young Thalaxian, finally broke the silence. So, humans pretended to be weak. Vexlora sighed, her mandibles clicking in reluctant respect. No, they allowed us to be arrogant, to raise a difference. Elias nodded, turning to leave. Behind him, the Scholarium's central display updated in real time, Earth's timeline rewritten, its wars unredacted, its victories no longer myth. And so, the galaxy learned when humans call something mythology, check the fine print. It's usually a threat.